All good? Okay. I'll call to the meeting to order at 6 o'clock on May 10th, regular meeting of council. And I want to start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the town of Winnipeg Beach is located on First Nations Treaty 1 territory, the traditional and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties made on these territories. We dedicate ourselves to move forward with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration to make Manitoba an inclusive and accessible place for everyone who lives here.
Be it resolved, the agenda for May 10th, 2023 regular meeting of council be approved as per the following additions. Addition, April utility report. Addition, April fire department report. Addition, April bylaw officer report. Addition, April animal control officer report. Addition, employee resignation. Addition, invite to Derek Johnson, MLA for Interlake Gimli, come and go function. Addition, green team approval.
Negative mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. Need a seconder, please. Councillor Cool. Thank you. All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the April 26, 2023 regular meeting and April 28, 2023 special meeting of council be approved as circulated.
Negative mover, please. Councillor Kozlowski. Need a seconder, please. Councillor Jarvis. I trust everybody had a chance to look at the minutes. Any questions, comments? Councillor Gendron?
They're not showing up on my meeting agenda. Just kind of on that again. Are they showing on everyone else's? Anyone that's got their meeting minutes open? Or their agenda open? Are the minutes from the last meeting showing?
No.
No, they're not.
No.
So we will table this until the next meeting.
Thank you.
Be it resolved that the regular meeting is hereby recessed for the purpose of holding a scheduled public hearing as required on the following matter. 6:03 p.m. 2023 financial plan public hearing.
Need a mover, please. Councillor Jarvis. Need a seconder, please. Councillor Gendron. Discussion. All in favor? Carried.
Okay, I'm just gonna dim the lights. So the two in the audience, just a reminder to please sign in. A quick welcome for taking the time to come in to one of the most important meetings of a community, in my opinion, is learning about your budget for the year and hearing about what is coming in future years. So the objectives of the hearing is to give a general overview of the financial plan. Any detailed explanation needed, please come and see me later, or phone me, or email me. I have a lot of the data available. If there are questions, I should be able to answer most of them. But if there is additional details required, please come see me after the presentation. So just some housekeeping items. Regulations of the public hearing. Every person in attendance must complete the information on the sign-in sheet. Any person intending to speak must indicate the intention on the sign-in sheet. Only persons indicated intention to speak will be allotted time to address council. Persons will be called upon to speak in order of the sign-in sheet. All speakers will be allotted 10 minutes or as time permits. In this case, the 10-minute rule may not be applicable as there is not lots of people in attendance. So again, due to time constraints, this no speaker will be allotted time to address a topic that's already been addressed. And all concerns and points will be recorded. So the 2023 financial plan. This is a back on track budget that is all about making hard decisions to move this community forward, fiscal responsibility and transparency, and organizational changes to streamline and reflect the community's priorities. So focus issues for council for 2023, we have communication. Council has stated this is a focus issue, not just external communication with our residents, but also internal communication as well. So there are a few items allotted in the budget to address some of that communication. The Intrado Interactive Services, what that is very similar to the school messaging services. So anyone who may be familiar with having a young person, in school that when they send messages out, they create a database with phone numbers that we can then send mass messages out. So for example, if we did have a road closure, we would be able to set up this road closure. Anyone who's registered with us will all get a phone call stating that please be advised, road closed between here and here from this time to this time, boil water advisories, reminder to pay taxes, as well as some of the fun aspects if we're running special events. Don't forget to get your tickets for. So having this sort of service, I think, is a way. We tend to rely a lot on website and social media, and there seems to be cause of concern that there is a population base who isn't active on social media sites, and so how do we get our messaging out to them? So I think that once that's set up in place, I believe that the general public will really enjoy that we have that. Some additional with communication is we are going to be running a community vision survey, and so the date has not been solidified as to having our town hall forum for that. It will be early June. Prior to, I believe, June 15th, the first couple of weeks in June. We'll be rolling out this vision survey as well as a few other pressing matters that are happening for the town, and we'll give that open forum to allow for residents to attend and get some information. And we are looking at reinstating the newsletters and as, again, a way to inform the public of some of the things that are going on. So when we look at the newsletter piece, it is not going to be looking at having a regular monthly newsletter that's going to be mailed out to everyone just due to the costs associated with that. However, when we are looking at issuing out utility bills, tax bills, any other sort of public notice, they'll be as an insert within those realms. So internal communication, internal, external, there have been some challenges with tracking or and record keeping regarding either whether it's requests from the public for lot grade or for any other matter, as to say, has this been addressed, has this not been addressed? It seems that it's been more email communication, and we don't have a solid database that we can track that everyone will have access to. So we are looking at, when we look at that, we are going to be using that site docs, although a secondary use for that is really designed from a works perspective for safety, having certifications on hand, and those types of things, pre-trips on vehicles. So it sort of does a bit of both. So we're able to tailor-make some forms, and as we go through that process, the training has not happened at this point, but we hope to be rolling out some of that and make it ease of access for our residents as well. When they have some of these online forms for various things, it's set to one email, and then we have one data entry who creates the file that everyone will have access to. So the other key focus issue is infrastructure. So without a doubt, wastewater treatment, high priority. Our drainage systems, high priority. From what I gathered last year was a really good indication, recognizing an anomaly year, but it really did point out some of the deficits. And then we're looking at with our equipment, right? So those are some of the big focus areas that council is having discussion on and looking at making some decisions. And the other, of course, is development strategies. And so increasing revenue streams, right? Right now, the main revenue stream for any community really is taxation. And so this council's being very progressive of looking at other ways to generate revenue aside from just taxation. So we're looking at some of those is looking at the Airbnb and vacant dwelling taxation. So that separate piece. No decisions made, just exploratory only at this point. Paid parking programs are some of the things, and economic development. So you know, when we look at these development strategies, you need the staff resources, and you need to make sure that there's someone allocated to keep things on track. So when we talk about reorganization, as you'll see that throughout the presentation here, there does need to be some shift of what's happening in through there. So we are looking at increase in special events, hoping to generate some additional revenue through there, as well as land use planning and increase of business growth in our downtown core. So these are like in a condensed version of the focus issues for 2023. Not to say they are the only issues council is addressing, but those are the focus issues. So focus issues aside, priorities without a doubt. First and foremost, finances. The financial state is of top priority for numerous reasons. Getting our audits caught up, getting a good indication of where we are, our disaster financial assistance. As you can see, if anyone has read the agenda, Finance has put in the first claim submission for DFA, Disaster Financial Assistance, of over $500,000. So over $500,000 at this point for first submission has been spent in 2022 that was not budgeted for. And so the importance of making sure when we look at some of that, is to really know clearly when we're looking at the numbers entered into a system to segregate those DFA expenses so we have a clear understanding of what the true operational costs were for 22. So without having your 2021 audit in place, it makes it more challenging to have your 2022 audit in place, which makes it very challenging looking at what are the actual numbers, realistic numbers for 23. Our second big priority is wastewater treatment facility. Continuous discharge is a must for this community. It's a must on several factors. Based on the existing lagoon structures that we have in place, without continuous discharge, we will not be able to accommodate additional growth and development. And so when we look at the influx coming in from a seasonal, technically in some way a seasonal resort town, when you're looking at bigger, better, bringing Winnipeg life back to Winnipeg Beach, growth and development is huge. So without having the infrastructure to sustain it, it has an economic backlash to that, right? So that is why that is a huge priority. And 3, everything else. So there is, I think that, when we talk about community engagement, in order for any council to really take a look at sound decision making, hearing from the community, what are the community's needs, what are their wants, what are their expectations. I think it's prudent that we try to engage some of that so that this council can make the informed decisions and know that they're making the right decisions for the community because of that community feedback. I mean, everybody wants positive change. I've got a few quick slides on education property tax. There has been some changes. I'm not going to go through it in depth, as this is all handled, this whole program is handled by the province. I have no control over it. I have no control over when checks get issued, see if someone's check has been issued or not issued. So I'll just skim through. Big change, what people are going to notice on their tax bill is a reduction from the 2022 with that automatic education property tax. So in past years, forever, until the government has decided to phase out the education property tax on the tax bills, $700 was the max that anyone could have for an education property tax refund. So last year they reduced that automatic $700 to $525 automatically, with a 25% rebate check that was coming in the mail. So in 23, so additional changes is now they've reduced that automatic credit again. So instead of $525, everyone will notice a $350 credit on there. However, they have increased the amount of the check rebate to the amount of 50% of the actual education property tax. So quick slide, when we talk about that is for 2023, if we take a look at what had happened previously with the 848 as the amount of tax that would be paid because the $700 rebate was included. In 23, you'll see the $350 rebate, and because of the 50% reduction, there'll be another rebate check coming in the mail. So in essence, the only amount that's required for education property tax is $424. Now this is for residential properties. This is not for commercial properties. Commercial properties have not changed, that they will receive a 10% rebate on both the education property tax as well as the secondary levy that businesses pay. So what do we got? In 23, here's some of the changes that we're looking at. So departmental allocations, anyone reviewing the 23 financial plan versus the 22 financial plan, there are some significant differences that you'll see. So when I talk about the department allocations, is taking a look at, for instance, with beautification, which is under environmental development, those wages as well as those expenditures are now allocated to environmental development and not lumped in with public works as before. And same as with economic development. So it is a bit of a fine line, the way that the economic development and recreation programs that have been happening here in Winnipeg Beach, how they intertwine. And so starting some very introductory segregations from that, I think is really important. When we look at economic development and having some of that segregation, it opens up some lines for whether you have a community development corporation or whether you choose to have a recreation corp. I mean, although they're similar to some extent, there are some definitives as well. So I think trying to start some of that segregation leaves that open for other entities. And it may come to a point that whether it's community involvement or looking at hiring an actual economic development officer and a CDC is created, some of these budget lines then are removed entirely from the financial plan, whereas then the municipality is just providing X amount of dollars as for operations to the CDC, but the CDC is generating a level of funds on their own. Not that we're anywhere near that, but if we don't start making some strides to some segregation, you never will get to that point. So organization restructuring, some new directions. There's been new teams. No surprise to anyone that we've got a new staff. Even administratively, we're looking at 4 new people within less than 1 year in this particular office. So when you have huge turnovers that has been happening, it's time to take a look at the existing structures that were in place. Maybe they weren't working, and that may have been part of the reason for the continued revolving of staff and management. I think it's time to take a look at what the needs are of the community. Again, I'll plug the vision survey for anyone who is listening out in TV Lab. The importance of having that in place is to really make sure that the direction that we're moving in is fitting the community's needs. So keeping things as status quo just doesn't work. And so again, identifying a few gaps and that we do need to make some changes. So some changes that were not in our control, assessment increase. We have through that the 17 million in increased assessment. As per the report, there's several factors for that level of increase. Without a doubt, new construction is one, improvements and upgrades another. But interestingly enough, especially for this particular community, I wouldn't doubt without in-depth analysis that the biggest reason for this increase is really more about the property, the sales of property and the property values. And so recognizing, no surprise, property prices have been very, I don't want to say inflated, but have really boomed over the last little bit. And so when we look at our assessment for 23, they're really based on a lot of the property sales that were happening in 20 and 21. And they were, and any realtor is saying, wow, they just inflated. And so part of that comes back to the previous slide when we look at Airbnbs and we look at a lot of the rental properties. When we talk about affordable housing, not that they're a bad thing, but some of the impact that has through that is housing is selling at a inflated price as a result of more of an investment property than it is from a residential permanent resident perspective. And so part of that, when you have a lot of houses that are selling at an inflated price, when they take a look at the overall assessment of the community, and it's not that they every year it's property by property by property. There's a formula that's used based on the property sales of the community and what was that property status, which then looking at from what it was assessed at prior, gives them their percentage that sometimes goes right across the board. Now, not everybody has received an increase. There are parameters, there are some decreases, but I would be very surprised if that wasn't the biggest focal, because there really hasn't been a lot of new growth and development in 22, you know, that would stem this height. So school tax, that has a bit of an increase in there from. However, because of the increase of our assessment, the actual mill rate for the school levy did drop. And the other big change, not sure you can see through there, is 2023 is a true operational spending based budget. And so what I mean by that is previous budgets had allocated funds from the reserve accounts, not for specific projects, but to offset some of the operational expenses. And so, right, wrong, indifferent, I always caution councils that when you are looking at doing that, it's a very slippery slope. And so you need to really take a look at the operational expenses. What are the needs? If the operational expenses are too high, that's a good indicator to council to either A, cut services, reduce service delivery standards, or don't provide the service at all, or look for additional revenue outside of taxation. So what does this mean, right? So lots of numbers, lots of percentages being thrown around. This is a very quick slide. It's certainly not going to be relevant for every property. Taking some round numbers, when we look at an assessed property worth residential 130,000, you pay tax on 45% of that. So your rate of taxation is based at 58.5. So looking at, and again, big disclaimer, this is not including the debenture payments or those special service levies that you see as separate lines for water and sewer, just strictly taxation. So in 2022, the mill rate was 28.178. 2023, it's 30.5751, so a difference, an increase of 2.575 mils, or 9%. So we recognize, and council has deliberated, and this was not an easy decision to have a 9% increase on taxation. If we looked at what was happening in the past based on keeping mill rates low by using your reserve funds, the trouble with that is reserves run out. And so this truly really is looking from any item identified on capital on page 13, anyone who's reviewed, there is a specific reason why those reserve funds were taken out, and there's a correlating expense for that as well. So those costs, when we do that, when we show the revenue coming in for an item, an expenditure, and we show the expenditure, they cancel out and really have no bearing on your mill rate itself. Unlike showing the revenue coming into the coffers and no expense going out, it really, in some ways, overstates your revenue or understates your expenses. And so that's why on very rare circumstance, should councils make it regular practice to be looking at that kind of practice. So we're looking overall, when you look at all of the good things coming through this year, we'll see from the feedback from the community, property assessed at $130,000, they could be looking at an additional $150 on 2023's taxes. Properties valued or assessed at $200,000, pay tax on $90,000, you're looking at about $230 increase on that property. So businesses do have a decrease. They are not subject to the same level of inflation, and that is strictly because they pay an extra school tax that the residential base does not pay. And that extra school tax really dropped as well in mill rates, and so that's why they're at 5.43% increase. And so very similar, a business assessed at $130,000 at 65% taxation, they can expect an increase of about $170. A business assessed at $200,000 can look at an increase of about $260. So I'll make reference to very similar with the budget is what we call the key spending departments. And so we have general government, which is basically the day-to-day operations. It's council, it's administration, it's your legal, it's your even your taxation itself, assessment services, so it's all of those types of things. Our protective services are lumped, like when you look through the financial plan, it's protective services are fire, bylaw enforcement, policing, emergency measures, those are all of the protective services. Transportation services, roads, equipment, snow, ditches, sidewalks. Environmental health is garbage and recycling. Environmental development is beautification and cemetery. I did miss one, public health, which the line we have is the clinic. Economic development is where I've sort of allocated some of that movement from recreation, is looking at bandstand, boardwalk days, special events. That's sort of segued into there. Recreation is dealing with the community center, arts and culture, and our utility is water and sewer and lagoons. So, quick rundown of what this budget is. Again, 2023, I caution anyone out there looking at the financial plan presentation, please do recognize the 2022 actuals are not actuals. So they are work in progress. There is work to do within those entries, but that is what's in our system, and I can't, I don't want to say justify, but I would need to do a lot of research if there's questions about any of the numbers under the 2022 actual. And some of the biggest things is, again, the DFA wasn't segregated out, and we've still got lots of work to do there. But so what's new? As I said, that communication piece, it's lack of a better word, it's like a robocall system, so that's new. We've got building upgrades, as anyone walking up in through here is taking a look at the building tint. There was an air conditioning unit on the rental side of the building that needed repair. We are looking at the weeping tile and fixing some of the vent systems in here. Anyone can say through the flood there was actually water coming out of the heating ducts, the vents bubbling over, so we do want to be addressing some of that. Our site docs, that internal communication tool. You can see there's some legislative insurance increases through the budget. I can't honestly say they're huge increases. I think it's more a question of cost allocation. So when I look at what was budgeted for, or the actual for 22, looking at the insurance bill themselves, and again, every administrative staff has their own realm of how they prefer to allocate things, but our liability is $17,000 in itself, so it's not taking into account, there's a lot of level of other insurances, the buildings, for the municipal building, and various other things that I did pull the bill, is we're looking at $28,000 for bill. And the other increase is dealing with our IT expenses. So there definitely has been some issue within IT. As of recent, there has been some concern in reference to our IT systems, and things are a bit piecemeal. And so when we look at the cyber attacks that are becoming more and more prevalent, looking at issuing and request for proposal to various companies to really make sure that the town of Winnipeg Beach is protected with their information, that there's no risk of losing information, is bumping up to the forefront. So that's some of the new things that were happening in general government. Protective services, so some capital improvement. People may have not seen the new mini pumper truck now is in operation. They do have some other minor equipment they're looking at. There was an increase in bylaw enforcement, and specifically again dealing with our bylaws for unsightly and vacant properties. So legislation changes rapidly, and so when we take a look at those bylaws, they are currently under review. Bylaws are only as good as the enforcement ability of them. And so when we deal with these two particular bylaws, specifically unsightly, it is something that you have to keep on top of. You have to make sure that you've got current legislation, or anything that you do for that is for naught. You don't have the legal aid, the ability to do the imposing. So that there is some level of increase for that, as council, as some of the deal with the focus issue is recognizing there have been concerns about properties in the community, and it feels as if they have not been addressed. And so this is the year, in order to address them appropriately, we have to make sure we have the right legislation in place. So in transportation, you know, the consumer price index is from November 22, 6.8%. So the collective agreement, when we talk about wage increases, and you look at one of the lines in the budget and wondering what is going on there, that is a big part of it. So when we look at having normal, whether it be 2, 2, and 2, 3, 3, and 3, or 1.5 or 0, 0, 0, we're looking unbeknownst, coming out of nowhere, 6.8% increase on one of the biggest budget lines in transportation. So that's definitely, we're looking at sidewalk repair. There's $25,000 slated for sidewalk repair. That will be on a priority-based process. So although there's a lot of priorities, it looks like we have to solidify that scope of work and which area of priority is going to be targeted first. It will also mean, although something has a big priority, it may be over the amount allocated. And so although we're not saying minimizing that priority, if we would have to look at bumping that and then readjusting for the next year when we look at what does sidewalk repair look like going forward. We are looking at, with the Building Sustainable Communities grant, have that in there as when you look at the outdoor lighting. I'm sure that might have caused a gas at a $100,000 increase. Well, a big part of that is that expense, as you can look through page 13, where it is a previous project that was committed, but a different scope of work had applied for the grant. And so although this is, we've been able to shift that scope of work, the project must go through. And so that $100,000 is what was slated. We do have 50% covered by Building Sustainable Communities, and that is going to be the lights on Main. So there may be opportunity when we look at that there's a level of sidewalk repair that can be covered under that as well. So our roads, unlike last year, dust control, so that is a big budget line, $100,000. There is some shift of looking at having the dust control in-house. It's not so much as a cost reduction measure as it is for a higher level of service delivery standards. So in the case of keeping the money the same, we're able to provide more service by this level of in-house, as they're able to get down some of the smaller roads that they weren't able to get at previously when it was contracted out. And then we have drainage. So new capital project for this for sure is looking at addressing the drainage. And so the downtown area had been identified as top priority. There are a lot of reasons why, as it seems to be a main hub of a lot of the flow that's going there. So if we are able to address that hub, hopefully we would be able to address some of the other minor drainage issues that go away magically because there's not this backup piece that comes through there. And looking at some culvert repair. So transportation with equipment, this is new and exciting. There is a new machine. It's currently being tested as a demo right now. It's a Hydra Dig. It's far more versatile than the existing equipment that they have in reference to this Cat backhoe. There are a lot of additional benefits of this machine, which will allow them to do other scopes of work. Some specifically in this case is when we take a look at the drainage, the way that you don't have to keep resetting the machine and you're able to keep it level and move along with it. And so I'm not miss equipment, and certainly any questions I will reference to our Public Works manager on that. We are able to look at some of the cost sharing of taking a look at the trade-in for the Cat backhoe. It's astounding what used vehicles or equipment is worth now. The community did pay $165,000 for that backhoe, and our trade-in value was $165,000. So there was absolutely no loss, which is a wonderful thing. So sidewalk machine. Although it states it's a sidewalk machine, the uses for that, there's several other uses for that as well. And so with that, they're looking at trading in that skid steer. So the skid steer is wide for the existing sidewalks, and there has been cause for concern when we're clearing the sidewalks. With this new machine, we will be able to do more sidewalks because it is narrower. So some of the other sidewalk systems that are west of number 9, we can actually start looking at implementing that within our sidewalk clearing process, like through the winter. So that's pretty exciting. They're also buying a new road blade. I can't comment on that. I know it's to blade the road, but as far as anything else goes with that, again, any questions with the road blade, I am happy to get those answers by talking with our Public Works manager, as well as the GIS system software. So the system itself, the software, and the training. And so for numerous reasons, aside from things I've mentioned, drainage and yada, 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 municipalities are bound to have an asset management plan. And that's mandated federally to provincially to municipal. And so without having a GIS system in place, when we talk about mapping, having the ability to map our infrastructure, looking at depths of our infrastructure, looking at when we, a proper system in place of when we've replaced this curb stop, having a unified program where date, curb stop changed, May 29th, 2023. We can always go back and take a look what's problematic. If we're changing this curb stop again a year later, what was the cause of that? So without having this something in place, again, it's that level of communication as well, but just more of an information hub. It makes it very challenging of who's doing the documenting. Right, and especially when you have a turnover of staff as well. So there's no surprise here, right? So when you have a lot of that happening, things get missed, and things, no doubt, the community will be letting us know that this was supposed to happen, this didn't happen, and I'm going to apologize in advance that, you know, the team is doing the best that they can without record keeping or having a central hub of a way to store your data to follow up on these items. Unfortunately, things do get missed. And so we are hoping that this is a huge step for the community, being able to have a mapping system as well as looking at elevation. So not only for drainage, when we start looking at our road renewal plan, we're going to be able to really have accurate information and make sure that roads are being built to spec. That's going to stand the test of time. So we do have, there is some other issues with the equipment. When we look at some of the aged equipment and not necessarily having clear expenses allocated for repairs and maintenance, We are almost end of life in a lot of the equipment, and so that is gonna be a focal point for council moving forward. What does this look like? What does the fleet look like? Where do we go from here? Are we buying, are we leasing, what's happening? But without a doubt, when you look at the budget, a big unexpected expense is the loader brakes. That is something that cannot be done in-house, and it's without a doubt a tune of $18,000 is what's slated in the budget to do these brakes. And that's just what it costs when you look at heavy equipment and having that kind of maintenance done on them. So our environmental health status quo, it's all contracted, so really no change in the budget, and that's our garbage recycle. Our public health status quo, slight increase for the medical clinic rent. Other than that, nothing new, nothing exciting to report there. Our environmental development, slight shift in the ledgers as stated before, so the beautification wages are now under this key spending department. There is a new initiative. There was no tax implication through that, as the expense for the sponsored planter program is expected to only move forward if you also have that revenue to offset that. So when we talk about a sponsored planter program, it is an initiative that our beautification department, Odette, who does a wonderful job here, has been a bit of a passion for her, is to look along STIT of having some planters with some flowers in there. And now recognizing the cost of, when we look at the cost of flowers and those things, just moving forward with that initiative is not within her decision, but to offset that revenue with a sponsored program, so that whether it be a resident, a business, or a new business who wants to have a little bit of a free sponsor tag along those poles, so they will be along the hydro poles with a bit of a basket. So does it move forward? Doesn't it move forward? It's an in and an out, so it made no impact to the taxation, to the. And so there was some minimal allocations to some Christmas lights. So economic development, so increased boardwalk days, 5,000 for the bricks. Special events, you'll see that there's a lot of increased elevated expense within those. Well, although you see those elevated expenses, if you look at page 2 under the revenues, you will also see an elevated revenue under that economic development and recreational line, well, economic development line at this point. So again, staff restructure, planning. This council has their work cut out for them. There is a lot of, moving forward doesn't happen overnight, and planning is key. So there's a lot of moving parts when you're looking after a community, and you're looking at from a growth and development, when you're looking from land use, when you're looking at new revenue initiatives, when you're looking at all of these things. Again, community vision survey, what does the community want? Engage with this council, engage with the admin staff, and please do fill out that survey when it is rolled out, as without those tools, it is a challenging job for this council or any council to be looking at making these major impacts, these decisions that have such major impacts to both taxation and the community itself. Without having that community engagement, it's really, don't be pointing the fingers. The council, it's a thankless job, and they do the best that they can with the information provided. So if the resident and business community in this area are not actively engaged, you cannot point that finger to this council. And anyone who would like to have these discussions, by all means, my door is open. So recreation, again, so there is repair and maintenance. I mean, facilities, rec facilities are huge in the dollars to run these facilities. The infrastructure it takes to run them, the maintenance on the infrastructure it takes to run them, and it's a challenge. This community should be very thankful that they have a functioning community center and a curling center. A lot of communities are starting to really streamline. They are starting to shut their doors. They are looking at things, so but they do cost. And so again, when we look at initiatives to increase revenue streams, aside from taxation, there are some creative ways that we are going to be looking at. We are hoping that, I'm fairly confident with some of the new initiatives that the capital improvements that are listed out here to a tune of $67,000 will not be borne by taxation. The new air fryer system was, however. But grant applications have been made, and I said we are looking at running some initiatives to offset some of those costs. So increase, again, same thing as economic development, increase in expenses for special events and programming. Special events are those one-offs of the trivia nights. They're looking at increasing some of the can skate. So this year, swimming lessons is currently under review, and getting lifeguards in place and being able to provide that for the youth or just the community as a whole is really exciting, because I understand it has not been happening here. So again, we do also show every time we run an event, we do allocate revenue. That's the intent, is there's usually a revenue stream that comes with that event. So although the expenses have been inflated in the budget, so has the revenue to counteract that. So the new thing that is a really new initiative is offsetting the library membership reimbursement program. So there has been lots of cause for concern. There's the Gimli Library, there's the Selkirk Library, there's who goes where, it's split. So what do we do with that? Now, although the libraries themselves would like us to be, as the town, an active member, the per capita costs are in excess of $10 per capita. The per capita is based on your permanent residencies, not seasonal. But that being said, when we're looking at 1,600 resident base, you're looking at $16,000 per library to be a member of. So $32,000 on the onset of a new initiative. That is a big leap to take, especially in the 2023 budget that's dealing with actual operating expenses. So to offset pilot project, take a look what's happening. Council has decided to offset 50% of any library membership. So anyone who, a property owner who it belongs to a library, comes to the office, shows proof of receipt of the membership, and then we issue a rebate check of 50% of that membership, because there is a difference in the amounts. And the other big change in recreation is peers. So there has been a big shift from having it from a contracted perspective, as this year, 23, it's again new direction, new initiatives, new staff. It is going to become an in-house scope of work. So if this shift is successful, so what that in-house scope of work means is that our Public Works Department will be in charge of building the piers and erecting the piers. And so if this is successful, great, we'll revisit what this looks like moving forward, but this is also a new shift that's happened. And then we have our utility. So big change again coming up in the regular meeting of council. Public Utilities Board has approved the rate increase that was submitted back in 22. And can't say it enough, wastewater treatment, top priority. Some staff restructuring as part of all of the whole organizational chart as a whole, when we look at scopes of work and reporting entities and what that looks like. So every department's a part of that, as well as the need for accurate financial reporting. And so when I say that same thing with utility as with the general operating, the actual financial reporting is not intended to the operating systems of it, is more from the admin systems of it, where we can see of making sure that whether it's the wages for a public works staff that's coming in to do utility work, that those wages are appropriated to that utility. Making sure that there is no offsetting true utility costs by the general operating. And making sure that with the DFA claims that we really pull them out of the 2022 actuals and put them in that separate line, so we can really truly see what the true operational costs are, which are a big factor in determining the rates. So, in conclusion, upcoming items, mentioned again, town hall meeting, it's June 2023. The big items that we'll be addressing through there is vision survey first and foremost. Without having this data, council can't say for sure they're meeting the needs of the public if they're not getting some input from the public. So community engagement is key. Speed limits through town, anyone watching our meetings in the past, recognizing we are in a reduced speed limit zone, and there are some legislation requirements for that, so is that the same direction that we're taking? Again, our wastewater treatment facility, we should have some updated information, and I am hopeful that we'll have some solidified options of course of action to address this issue. 2026, the sewer and water upgrade debentures will be paid. We do have to be looking at the public works fleet, and the one thing that 23 budget does not reflect, nor several other budgets in the past, is really taking a good look at a reserve contribution plan and how important it is for a community to have a reserve contribution plan, because when you're faced with the unknowns and some of these big expenses, it's far easier to allocate a little bit every year than it is to address one big incident all at once. So it is all work in progress. We are really hopeful that moving forward, staying on that right track, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we really need to know what's important to the community. So I will take questions. I will just go get the sheet in the order of sign-in. I will turn the lights on, everyone. Watch yourself. There we go. So Joanne, you've indicated you'd like to speak?
Council, usually I'm a lot more, I want to compliment the administration on an excellent presentation. Excellent presentation. I want to compliment council on hiring administration and administrative and staff that is going to move us forward, because I can see a big difference. I have no questions. I think the operational spending-based budget is a process you're going to have to utilize, and I'm sorry, but I'm impressed with the hard work that council has done. I look forward to the budget, and congratulations. I know you've got some really difficult hard work, and I also want to compliment the staff, the administrative staff, for being here for a short period of time and getting us to a level where you have something as simple as an accounts payable listed on your agenda. That's been coming for a long time. And so I'm very pleased to see those changes. So I look forward to 2024, and I look forward to that budget and see how this works. But thank you very much. That's a change for me. The utilities.
I'm shocked, Joanne. I fully expected a list of questions. I was ready.
Sharon, you went through it all. Any questions I had, you went through it with your presentation. Yeah, I mean, there are one or two, but in the big picture, those are minor. I commend council for working on it, and I certainly commend the administration for doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, you have indicated you wish to speak?
Yeah, when you spoke about the blade, you're not changing you're still buying a new grader, are you? Or?
No, it's not buying a new grader. What it is, it's a different attachment. So it's
Oh,
some
it's
sort
just
of,
a blade, I know.
yeah, it's a roll blade. So it's
the
not,
bottom blade.
yeah, it's not one of the
No.
big road blades. I think
Yeah.
it's smaller to be able to address some of the smaller areas like possibly back lanes. I can double check for you with Public Works on that.
Yeah, believe me, yeah, now I know. Another question is, are you guys gonna be doing something about the derelict buildings where you got the tall grass, where we don't have to have the same problem like last year? People coming complaining and nothing was done.
So as I said, that was a bit of an increase in the budget line, is we have to have the legislation in place that gives us the authority to address it. Our unsightly bylaw is back in 2009, and legislative pieces have changed. And one of the biggest changes is that normally, like with a lot of bylaws, there's this level of enforcement that's just strictly for that particular bylaw. Some of the changes that have happened now is that they're looking to have an actual separate enforcement bylaw. And then your other bylaws, such as your unsightly, your grass, derelict buildings, derelict vehicles, those revert back to your enforcement bylaw. So I do have draft copies of those bylaws under the circumstance that the financial plan has taken top priority. I do plan on reviewing them and bringing forward for first reading some of the drafts of these new bylaws that will give us the ability, the teeth, and the confidence that we know we have the right to enforce it without having a negligent charge on us for that. So that is a priority of this council, and that will be happening.
Yeah, the reason I would brought that up is because right behind my place, a new development, that I sold my development to the guy, and he does nothing with the grass, he just, and the kids came in there shooting firecrackers off. We're just lucky there was no big fire.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna see a repeat of that, no.
No, for sure not. So, yeah, that is a focus issue without a doubt, is taking a look at making sure that we've got, enough is enough. I've heard it loud and clear, so there will be penalties to it.
And now, on your 9% increase on the taxes, is that like a $200,000 building? Is that gonna, with the mill rate, how is that gonna really, is that gonna change any mill rate or anything?
Well, so the mill rates did change, and I'll just actually dim the light. So for a residential property, if your building is assessed at 200,000, you pay tax on 45%. So you're paying tax on 90,000. With the mill rate proposed in 2023, that will equate to a $230 increase.
That would be $230 increase
For a property assessed at 200,000.
for the year.
For the year. And again, the values do not include the sewer and water separate charges, right?
Is
Because
there
those
gonna be
are.
a change also in the sewer and water increase or not?
So the utility bill, there is the public utilities, the rate application was made. However, for taxation, the debenture, the charges that you're seeing are actually payments for a loan, and that does not change. So there is what is listed as LID number 3, which is really a lack of some better words, is we do have utility, like sewer customers who also have water, right? So they got sewer and water, and they get issued,
that's downtown.
and they get issued a quarterly bill. But we have a huge base of people that have sewer only.
That's
And
right.
they don't receive a quarterly bill. So what they do receive is that LID number 3, which is basically your sewer bill, but it's put on taxes. So for 2023, those amounts are not changing. However, as of April 1st, for anyone who is on the metered system, the water and sewer metered system, those rates will be changing. But that's not an impact to taxation. Joanne, did you have another question?
No, but just some clarification. So LID 3 will not be receiving any of the PUB rates this year?
Not this year, because it's borne by taxation.
So in their rate study, they had a 2023 amount and a 2024 amount. Or was it 2023 just for LID 1 and 2, the downtown?
So I think that the rates that they're looking at identifying, I'd have to go back and clarify through that, but I cannot increase the LID number 3. Like, that's a separate bylaw altogether,
Right.
regardless what PUB has to say. So there isn't, when we look at the way that that's calculated, and because it's by taxation, I can't make those changes. One of the changes we do hope as we start sifting through some of this stuff is taking a look at the way that sewer charge is collected. And as there has been a system change, from Assist to Muni, where we are gonna be looking through that program of actually setting up a separate user account and actually generating a sewer utility bill through that program and not collect the fees via taxation. However, the loan payments, the debenture payments that you have, that is by taxation. And that will not change, but those are paid in 2026.
So on the new bill, then it won't show no sewer charges, it'll show LID instead.
No,
No?
you'll get your sewer charge for 9074.
Yeah, so that's still on there.
Oh, that's still
Yeah,
on
that's still on there. That's still on there for this year.
For this year?
Yeah.
Oh,
And if we have
that'll
the
be for
ability,
the year after.
if we have the ability to shift it so the utility revenue stays with that utility revenue and isn't funneled through the general operating funds, that's ideal, right? You wanna keep those revenue streams separate. So it is just an exploratory stages, but we can't make those changes unless we change the legislation behind that, which is the bylaw.
So there won't be no changes for this year, which when taxes come out in a month's time?
No, you'll see so depending where you are, you will see your water upgrade charge, your sewer upgrade charge, and then if you're just on the town, well, I guess if you're not on the water, you may not see the water upgrade charge. And then you'll see that LID number 3, which is really your utility bill for the use of the sewer, not the loan payment, which is what those charges are paying back, those upgrades that have happened, not operational. The LID number 3 is operational. Any other questions?
No, that's it for me for now, unless I think of something.
Okay, one more comment, if you don't mind. The hybrid dig,
Correct.
I saw it working today. Really think it's a good investment, as much as I know, but I Googled it and I checked the website and to see. So everything that machine is capable of doing is a really good investment. So I would encourage council, it hasn't been purchased yet, but because it's on demonstration, but I would encourage you to look at it or to move forward with it, because it's a good investment and they can do so much with it. It's just gonna make it really good. So good decision, council.
Where is that machine now working?
Just
You
down
drove
Kernstead.
past it on Kernstead Road.
They're putting
What
that
did it do?
flow meter in.
Oh, by the lagoon there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't get close enough to it, that's why.
You can Google it.
Okay,
Yeah,
everyone watch their
Google it.
eyes. I'm gonna turn the
Tomorrow.
lights back on. So if there are no further questions, I will,
Thank you, council. Thank you, Joanne. Good night.
Right.
be it resolved that council now close the public hearing and reconvene its regular meeting of council at 7:03 PM.
Need a mover, please? Councillor General. Seconder, please? Councillor Jarvis. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that council approves the accounts payable listing being check number 21259 to 21295, inclusive of checks, electronic payments, and payroll issued in the amount of $193,710.80 as circulated.
I don't have a resolution for that. You can do it anyways.
Yeah.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Kozlowski, can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Gendron, all in favor? Any questions, comments, points of discussion?
Not today.
Not today? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried.
So unfinished business subdivision application 4465-23-8254. So initially looking at this subdivision and changes to the Planning Act, legal counsel believed there was gonna be new roads created, and such a public hearing would be required for that. I don't know with council reviewing this application if sufficient time has been provided. They are looking, I have been in contact with both provincial planning and our planning district in reference to this application, and there are some concerns. Although we have some concerns with some of the requirements, such as being able to prove we have the capacity for some of the other lots, the focal point seems to be changing to really taking a good look at lot 3. So if council hasn't really reviewed the plan in depth, I suggest that we either have a special meeting, or we then review this, take some time to review it over the upcoming weeks, and we still put this back on the agenda for May 26th. So with the other lots that are being proposed, they have a lot of impact both from the development plan standpoint, where amendments would need to be made, as well as the zoning bylaw amendments would need to be made. And those are the ones that are problematic for council to approve the plan as presented, based on the capacity of the lagoon capacity to be able to house that infrastructure. So there seems to be a bit of shift from what I'm understanding, is to start just really taking a look at lot 3, which will be just that big area of the golf, the golf piece itself, and being able to permit a business on there, which is all under the zoning, no changes, no amendments would be needed. So council, I think at this point we'll revisit, this is new information for you, so first heard deferred, that we really have that, take a look at some of that. I'll get some additional data from there. So because there are no new roads being created within lot 3, a public hearing is not required at this point. And so because this shift has changed, we don't have to look at scheduling a public hearing.
Okay. Good to know. Any discussion, Councillor Jenrand?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, this is not my area of extensive knowledge, and I think I would benefit greatly from a group discussion on this, rather than just having it on the agenda, even just a half hour or an hour meeting separate to go over this and make sure that we all have a good understanding of what's being requested and how it relates to what our bylaws are. Is anyone else in favor of that?
Okay. Councillor, no, speak about that in a minute, Councillor.
And lot 3, was that the south end of the golf course?
So that was right in the middle.
Where the
So where the shaft is.
Yeah.
Councillor Hill, Councillor Jarvis,
I agree with Councillor Greenwell.
Me as well.
myself as well. Okay, so do we want to talk about that at,
Do we have set dates, or am I sending an email and dates be provided? What would council like to do?
We're requesting a special meeting, correct? Yeah,
Development meeting, yeah. So it would be a committee meeting.
why don't you, do you want to set a date now, folks, or do you want,
Sure.
our CEO to send something to us?
Let's
Get our calendars out. We have EVAM on May 23rd from 9 to 12, is that 9 to 1?
Well, we put in one just in case it runs over time, but she says
Possible to attach a half an hour after that?
May 23rd, okay?
How does that work for other councillors?
fine.
May 23rd?
Yep. Yeah, we have
Sorry, what time is the EDMA?
9 a.m.
9 to 12, pardon me, 9 to 1. We'll take a little break and then do a half hour, then we can look at the plans and have the discussion that we need to have.
So that was the communication edge module?
That's correct.
So that goes from 9 till 1?
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll break and have a half-hour session.
Make sense for folks?
I'm good.
So unfinished business, Public Utilities Board orders, so the application has been approved. So our next process that we do is we have to revise the bylaw, give third and final reading to the bylaw, as well as then get information out to the public. So I just wanted to let everyone know that the rate increase was approved and that we'll be reviewing for the bylaw at the next meeting. Unfinished business, CAT stats. How was that for members of council? Was that sufficient?
I would assume so, given that there's no comment.
Okay, whereas a request for donation has been received by the town of Winnipeg Beach, therefore be it resolved that council for the town of Winnipeg Beach authorize a donation in the amount of blank to Royal Canadian Legion Branch 61 for the purpose of air conditioning units.
Can I get a mover, please? Councilor Jarvis. Need a seconder, please? Councilor Kozlowski. Discussion? Councilor Kozlowski.
Yeah, I'm the chairman of the Legion Committee out here. I'm gonna ask for a $2,500 donation. And why I wanna ask for that is we'd be in big trouble if we lost this building.
Absolutely.
If they close their doors. I'll just give you a few things that they do here. They do Remembrance Day, which 100 to 200 people. Firefighters Ball. They have markets, teas, socials, weddings. They have Veterans Dinner, Christmas meals for the vets that they prepare and ship out, and also to the shut-ins. They do cards, play cards, Monday and Wednesday. Friday they play fun darts, which anywhere from 20 to 30 people. This is where we run our EOC, which is the Emergency Operating Center. So we want to make use of that building as well. So like I said, if they ever close their doors, this town's going to be in big trouble. It's a huge asset for this town. And I think if we can give for the animal shelter and that $8,500, we can surely give $2,500 to the veterans organizations, the ones that fought for us and died for us also. That's my recommendation.
And so Councilor Kozlowski, you see that as sufficient funds for the town?
Sure.
Other comments, discussion? Councilor General?
Do we have somewhere that it can come from? We just didn't.
That's the question.
There is, we are in early stages with our donation line in the budget, so there is room in the budget.
Great. Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that council approve Mayor Jackson or delegate to speak at the Sadie Grimm's Ride celebration being held in Winnipeg Beach on June 11th, 2023 at 3 p.m.
Need a mover, please. Councilor Kozlowski. Seconder, please. Councilor Jarvis. Discussion? All in favor?
Whereas council received EIPD bylaw 03-2023 for review and comment, and whereas council has reviewed, therefore be it resolved that council for the town of Winnipeg Beach issue the following comments: no comment.
Are you gonna move her, please? Councilor Jarvis. Need a seconder, please? Councilor Gendron. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Be it resolved that council for the town of Winnipeg Beach grant permission to Kiwanis Club to utilize town sidewalks for their fundraiser.
Are you gonna move her, please? Councilor Jarvis. The seconder, please. Councilor Gendron. Discussion?
No.
All in favor? Carried.
Be Be it hereby resolved that mayor and council be approved to attend the June 19th, 2023 Interlake District meeting being held at the Heritage and Arts Center in Stonewall.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jenner. Seconder, please. Councillor Jarvis. Discussion?
The CAO requests if councils are going to register themselves or if they require me to register them, just to send me an email so I can attend it. Yeah, you did, you already emailed.
Oh, I'm glad that someone's gonna be able to go. I'm not gonna be able to make it, so you will be going.
Yes, I actually registered myself, I believe, in the lecture, and I registered myself. I do have a question. Is preference by the CAO when we get invitations to these things that we just advise her and she will arrange for somebody from the administration to register everyone, or just register ourselves if we would like and let her know we've done it?
Let me check the CAO.
The CAO's preference is whichever council chooses.
Okay.
I have no preference.
Just let you know.
As
if
long
we've
as
done it
we're kept in
ourselves.
the loop from administrative, that we did not register someone who wanted to attend an event.
Is are any other council members interested in going to the June 19th meeting? See none. All in favor? Carried.
Be it hereby resolved that council authorize the following road closures for 2023. June 11th, Sadie Grim Ride, 1 block on Main Street. June 15th, Ride for Dad Cancer Awareness, 2 blocks on Main Street. June 24th, Market, all of Main Street. July 1st and 2nd, Canada Day celebration, all of Main Street. July 28th and 30th to the 30th, Boardwalk Days on Main Street. August 12th, Fire Truck Pull on Main Street. August 19th, Market on Main Street. September 2nd, Market on Main Street. September 3rd, Harvest Festival on Main Street. September 16th, Show and Shine on Main Street, Robinson Avenue and Center Avenue.
Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Jarvis. Seconded, please. Councillor Kozlowski. Discussion? Councillor Kozlowski first?
The show and shine, is that the car?
Yes.
Okay, don't they go all the way down to the end street there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so Robinson,
So
Main,
Main
and
Street all the
Center.
way down from one end to the other,
Yeah.
and then down here.
And then Robinson and then Center. Yeah.
Councillor Jenner?
I probably should have asked this earlier on the Sadie Grim Ride item, but do we know what progress is happening or what's going on with the Sadie Grim monument that they're supposed to be erecting on the beach there?
No, I have no idea. I just heard about it for the first time when I saw this. So I guess that was something that happened on the previous council?
It's been in the works for a few years, actually. They cleared the plot and put the sand down, and then nothing has happened.
Where is this?
That way and that way.
They go down the road from Stitt all the way, the gravel road that has by the soccer pitch,
Yes?
and right to the very end, and on your immediate left before you hit the actual boardwalk, there's a designated area for Sadie Grim there.
I thought that was for the beach patrol.
No, that's for Sadie Grim.
It was the start of something.
Yeah, they
big.
they dug it up and then they put sand and gravel down on a couple of years ago.
I saw
It's
that.
been like that for
Okay. No, I guess this is Legion?
No, it's
No, it's
the,
the Sadie Grim
it is
folks?
probably, it's to do with the Sadie Grim Ride. So perhaps whoever sent the invitation to the Sadie Grim Ride might be able to
There used to be a sign there
give us some.
originally.
Okay.
I think COVID has some
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely,
for
yes,
sure.
absolutely,
For sure.
yeah, it did.
delay. But I can certainly follow up on that.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
So additions, rubber curbs for discussion.
Okay,
Kozlowski, you asked for these to be put on?
Yeah, they're from me, so I guess I gotta speak on
Gotta
that.
speak to
First
it.
off, I want to record a vote on this. The one way to alleviate our parking problem, or a small portion of it, is to remove these curbs. These curbs are a hazard. I seen a few people trip on them last year, 2 children, and I myself went head over tea kettle on those ones. So I would like them removed, and maybe, I think the only place that has a patio is the hotel. And what we can do there to alleviate a car parking there is put those the tall flower pots that we had last year, 2 of them, or one in the middle. And they're also a nuisance to the motorcycles that come for the prostate and cancer one as well. They gotta shuffle their motorcycles in between those groups as well. So I'm asking them to be not put in this year.
Discussion. Councillor Gendron and then Councillor Jarvis.
I would like to request a first heard and deferred. We haven't really had any discussion on this. We're asking for a resolution at this point. As other matters that we've had before us recently, I don't think it's appropriate given the fact that there's not been a lot of discussion. We don't know which businesses this year will in fact be having a patio license. There's been no information provided on that, so I would like to request that this be deferred until the next meeting so that if I'm going to vote on something, I can make an informed vote.
Councillor Jarvis.
I'll back up what Councillor Gendron said.
So CEO has a question. So when we look at scope of work from Public Works, they are looking at, there has been some inquiries regarding patio permits. So there has been 2 inquiries so far. We have not received the applications at this time. Normal process to have these curbs in would have been expected to be prior to the next council meeting. So I am then looking for direction from council if they proceed or do they delay, so I can give an appropriate direction.
Councillor Jarvis.
I don't think because the last time they have 2 patio bylaws, and one's from 2017 and one's from 2020. And I don't think any of them, and especially the most current one, include the rubber curb stops. They were, the 2020, we were to build walkways and adjacent to the actual patio. So the curb blocks, I could be wrong, but I don't think they factor into the actual bylaw.
I put up my hand 'cause I'm never sure when I get to speak, so I'm speaking. I was on council watch when the curb stops were first brought on, where we were having this discussion about it at that point. And it was because there are so many businesses on this side of the street that do put their patios out. I was talking to a business owner just last week, and it looks like Shenanigans are probably putting theirs out. The market on Main often puts theirs out on the weekends. That can market out in front of what used to be the old put store. So we have a number of, I believe, businesses who are seriously considering putting their patios up this year. And those curb stops, they're not curb stops, those rubber curbs are to allow pedestrians to walk down the busy side of the street where all the businesses are without having any safety concerns. Because when council was first talking about it, when people did have their patios on the street, then you had parents with their baby strollers and 2-year-old toddlers and all those kinds of things walking on the side of the road and in between cars, and we almost lost a couple of kids one year because of that. And so part of the reason why they were put there was because of the heavy traffic on this side of the street, because that's where all the businesses are, and because of safety concerns. So just as background information for folks, that's part of the issue, and I certainly agree with what you were saying, Councillor Gendron, that maybe we need to have some time to think about it. However, those curb stops are usually put on before the May long weekend, and our next council meeting is after the May long weekend, and so for sure Public Works is going to need some direction from us, Councillor Jarvis.
The, council that you're referring to, they used the bylaw for the patios at that time, they had to be 7 feet from the curb. So the curb blocks being on the street, you could only build your patio up to 7 feet from the actual curb, so there was plenty of room for people to walk by.
Yeah, that wasn't what was happening, because, I mean, as you remember,
There was
on
a
Main
bylaw.
Street, there's, you know, piles of families that are walking together, and
That's why I back up what Councillor Jean
Yeah,
said about having a discussion, because one of the reasons,
so,
there was some ambiguity between the two bylaws, the 2017 and the 2020.
so the question that our CAO is asking us is, what kind of direction are we giving herself and Public Works, because, it's on their work agenda before our next meeting, because we always have them down by the May long weekend. And so what direction do we give our CAO and our Public Works? Councillor General.
Well, I certainly don't want to be interfering with the operation of a local business who wants to be putting their patio up and get their summer started. Their season is short enough. I believe this is a little bit too significant of an issue for us to be making a quick decision on. I'm of the opinion we are too late to be discussing this matter for the 2023 summer season, and we then should perhaps have Public Works go status quo with what they have been done in the past with these patios, and have a thorough discussion and a look at our bylaw, and address this issue with our bylaw and make some updates to the bylaw.
So if I can be clear, the bylaw, like putting the curbs in place, have nothing to do with
Yes,
the
and
bylaw.
I understand that, and
So
what I,
that's an
yes,
initiative,
yeah. And,
just
yeah.
to
So what
be
I'm,
clear.
yeah, what I'm saying is, I think we are too late to be having this discussion with the impact it may have on some of our businesses for the 2023 season, and that Public Works should proceed as Public Works would have been proceeding if we weren't having this discussion tonight. And then as a council, we have a look at this. I agree, it is something we definitely need to address, and perhaps we address it by tying it into our bylaw for the 2024 season.
What do other councillors think? Councillor Jarvis?
Why don't we then just at least allow the people that want patios to put the curb blocks in front of there till we make the decision? But example, if, a complete block doesn't want any patios, then I don't see a need to put any curb blocks there. Like we had one patio last year, and I think what Councillor Kozlowski is trying to say is that we put curb blocks all the way down Main Street for one patio. So if example, 2 people want patios and put the curb stops there, at least it gives them, as you've discussed, room to move around. But if nobody, say, in the center block wants patios, then why are we putting curb stops there? If parking is a premium and a safety issue, like people trip over these things. And I back that up, I see lots of people trip on these things.
You know what, people kind of
Trip on the
watch,
sidewalk.
but yeah, I mean, people
Yeah,
trip
that's-
everywhere. You
that's-
know, they're walking down the street.
If
they're
people walk
facing
in the
their
parking
phone,
signs,
Then they,
yeah,
they walk, you know.
yeah, they walk in the telephone pole.
So I don't think that saying that they trip over something that's quite big in the streets.
Well, I think we still need to be
Councillor
cognizant.
General?
I think that would probably be a reasonable compromise, given the current situation and the timing, that the curb stops going in front of areas where there's a patio, and then some form of access for people to accessibly get back onto the sidewalk. And then businesses that don't have them, we don't have them, and then we have a look at and have a discussion about it as a whole, so that we have something more concrete in place for next summer.
So are you suggesting that we do that now? For example, if one of them puts their patio out tomorrow, then we put the curb stops there.
Well, and it wouldn't be tomorrow, but yes, because I believe, part of the patio process is that Public Works is involved to make sure that things are done correctly, am I right?
Well, the reason that the curbs are put in there is because in the 2020 bylaw, it's a minimum of 7 feet is maintained inward from the curb to the outer edge. So if you can't utilize the entire sidewalk for a patio based on our bylaw. So the curb is put in to provide that 7-foot buffer. So the rubber curb to the real curb acts as that 7-foot leeway, which then allows the business to utilize the full sidewalk piece under the bylaw. So that's the reason the curb is impacts.
And that's why, in that same budget, we were to provide a walkway, a wooden walkway in that area. And we didn't provide the wooden walkway. I understood that there was problems with the wood, so they said we would put up the curb blocks, and that's how we got to the curb blocks.
So,
Does the hotel not go right up to the curb?
Correct, they do.
Right,
They don't
but,
give 7 feet.
but that's what the other curbs that are on the outside, that curb becomes the curb, right? The temporary curbing becomes the curb. And so between the temporary curbing and the real curb is the 7 feet, that's why they're placed there.
And anything south of the hotel there's no need for those curbs at all.
so
Go ahead.
can I make a suggestion that, at this point, we do the temporary solution, that between now and next meeting, if any business is putting their patio up, we can do the curb stops, and that we have a fuller discussion, because it's sort of in between. The first suggestion on the floor was, let's give everybody time to think about it, and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks from now. But then there's the problem with the timeline. And so, in the next 2 weeks, would that work for people?
That, I just needed clear direction, because
Okay,
for school.
so in the next 2 weeks, if a patio goes up there, we can put the curb blocks in. And if not, we'll just leave it until next meeting, and next meeting we'll have full discussion. Is that what we're wanting, so people can have a chance to think about it? Councilor.
And as Councillor Jean-Jean indicated, then you need to provide a on and off ramp for wheelchairs accessibility. If you're gonna put the curb blocks in, and say in front of the hotel, then you still have to have an off and an on, because they did, the one time they didn't put that in there, and then they had to come back and people are halfway down the street and they can't get back on the sidewalk.
So part of the issue,
You need a ramp.
Sharon hasn't been here last year. We don't just have the curb stops, but there was wooden ramps
On and off.
between,
That the works department installed?
They have
them.
Okay.
between the curb and the rubber curb, there was wood that was put down with on and off ramps, and it was the same level as the sidewalk, so it wouldn't be a tripping hazard. So it appeared as an extension of the sidewalk in some ways,
Provides
but it
access.
was wooden, and it was all the way down the street, except onto cross streets. Right, so there was ramps up and off.
Is it still
I think it might be.
Yeah.
That's great. Councillor Cole.
Is there a deadline for the patio permits?
Not that I'm seeing in the bylaw.
That would be helpful,
Yeah,
especially if you go this half and half plan.
yeah. So current legislation doesn't have any deadlines in there.
Maybe that's something we can discuss.
Okay. So can we put this on the agenda for next, for all of us to think about it and figure it out, and then come to council as well?
This did come up again once for sure, maybe twice we talked about it. There was nothing was done then, we talked about it, and again, swept under the rug. Now there's a problem.
It came up, I think, in context of talking about the parking issue in downtown.
Oh, yeah, it came up, we should have did something like that.
Don't start me.
So
Just